There are sometimes some places in the Quran where Allah talks about certain concepts that we just pass over because we're so focused on one thing, the primary subject, and we just want to derive the main conclusions from what Allah is saying, and we overlook the way in which Allah said it. And sometimes the way in which Allah says things and the small phrases that He adds to the speech just completely change your perspective on how you should view certain subjects. I know that sounds abstract. I'll try to make it very, very direct now. Everybody has a concept of I am learning deen or I am learning dunya. So when they're learning science, or if they're learning biology, if they're learning, medicine, or if they're learning, accounting or finance or something like that, they're learning dunya. And if they're studying hadith and fiqh and sharia and Arabic and tajweed and all of these things, then they're studying what? They're learning deen, right? And we do this all the time. Like my work is dunya and my time in the masjid is deen, right? So we separate deen and dunya all the time. We use this terminology, right? And so what happens then when you keep doing this and you keep using that kind of language is you develop the idea that certain things you do in a day, 24 hours, certain things you do are beneficial for your akhirah, and certain things you do are only beneficial for your dunya. But actually the concept of Islam is very powerful, it's very beautiful. The concept of Islam is that we are abd, we are slaves of Allah. And a slave is not a slave for certain hours. By definition, a slave is not the same as a worshipper. A worshipper is someone who does worship. So we were worshippers when we were upstairs making salah. You understand? But when salah was over, we were still slaves. Now the word for worshipper is abid. Abid. But the word for slave is abd. So we are abid, meaning worshippers, at certain times. When I go to Hajj, I'm abid. When I go to salah, I'm abid. When I'm reciting Quran, I'm abid. But when I'm driving my car, I'm still what? I'm still abd. When I'm getting married, I'm still abd. When I have children, I'm still abd. When I'm going to work, I'm still abd. When I'm taking a vacation, I'm still abd. I may not be a abid at the time, but I'm still a abd. But now the thing is, we've turned this conversation into deen and dunya. In other words, unless you're a abid, you're really not doing anything for your afterlife. You're not doing anything that makes Allah happy. If you really want to do something for your deen, then you have to be on the abid side of things. You have to be a worshipper, you have to be learning, teaching, in a masjid, in a halaqah, in a setting. You have to be doing these things. Other things are all for your dunya. Now the thing is, let's just change the framework of our education first. This happened to me while I was in Australia. A young man came up to me after my program and said, Ustad, I feel really bad. Why do you feel bad? Well, I'm studying accounting. Well, I guess you should feel bad. But explain more why you feel bad. But he feels bad because he wants to be studying deen instead. And instead he's studying accounting, which is dunya. So I said, why do you don't like accounting? You don't like the subject? I mean, I understand that just if you don't like accounting, that just means you're a normal human being. No, he goes, I love accounting. I really like it. I love the math. I love doing the numbers. I enjoy it. But I just feel bad that I'm doing this to make my career better and get a job and get married and make my parents proud and all of this. All of that is dunya. What am I doing for deen? I'm just doing all of this for dunya. You understand the question, right? And a lot of people feel that way. They have a successful career. They're an executive, or they're getting an MBA, or they're getting a PhD, and they're not getting a PhD in hadith or sharia, they're getting a PhD in microbiology. They're getting a PhD in psychology. They're getting a PhD in history, something. And they're like, well, this is just worldly, it has nothing to do with my afterlife. The way the Quran shatters this unfortunate concept, by the way, this concept is a new concept. This is not an old concept. This is a new development. It's a result of secularism. And the idea of secularism is to separate the worlds of morality and education from the rest of life. So your spiritual life and your moral life and it should be one thing, and education and public sphere, everything else should be separated. Those two worlds should not coexist together. Okay? So who you are at business and who you are at the masjid are two different things. This is business. Don't bring the masjid into this. Or this is a university. Don't bring religion into this. Or for example, you'll have companies, even in the Muslim world, sometimes you have, for example, American companies. And America is known for freedom of speech. but only in America. It's known for some freedom of speech. When they said they'll set up a company somewhere in like the Arab world somewhere, and they'll create a compound. Inside the compound, you pretend you're in America. And inside that compound, you can't talk about your religion. What? And you can't really openly pray, and you can't really do this, or you can't really wait, what is it? Wow. I thought freedom of expression, freedom of speech, you could do whatever you want. No, not inside this compound. We don't tolerate religious discussions here. Really? So what happens then is this idea, this extreme idea of separating your religious life and your life of ibadah from your life of your career. And we, for the most part, the world, not just one country or another country, the world has experienced some form of secularization or another. So the way that the average Muslim is secularized, even if they're raised in a Muslim country, even if they heard adhan their entire life, even if whether they're in Pakistan or they're here or they're in Bangladesh or they're in Australia or they're in America, it doesn't matter. You know what's happened with us? What's happened with us is when you go to college, right? What's your motivation for going to college? It's to get a good degree so you can get a good job. That's your motivation, which of course equals dunya, right? But then you have this guilt, I'm going to do all these things for my dunya, I've become a techie, I've become a programmer, I've become a doctor, I've become an architect, but I haven't done anything for my dunya. Now I need to make some time for Salah, I need to do Hajj, I need to start learning some Arabic, memorize Quran, I need to start taking care of my deen, right? So what happens is people swing one way, then they swing the other way. And then a lot of people quit their career. They just quit their career. I just want to do something for Islam. I don't want my career anymore. Forget it.